Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Tom Kelly, Automation Alley Executive Director and CEO, and welcome to Industry 4.0 in Focus. This is our weekly virtual event series dedicated to the fourth industrial revolution. And we're on episode 7, AR, the new reality for work instruction. AR is augmented reality. So each week, as you know, we're getting pretty good at this. We're taking a deep dive into topics covered in Automation Alley's 2020 Technology and Industry Report. So I'm pleased to be joined by Paul Reisner. He's the CEO and founder of Ops Solutions, and he's been a good friend to our Automation Alley community, and we're really looking forward to talking with Paul. So Paul is here today to talk to us about how augmented reality work instructions are revolutionizing the manufacturing industry by helping companies save time, money, and reduce errors. All good things that we like here at Automation Alley. So we'll be discussing one case study in particular and how Ops Solutions Light Guide Systems technology was able to help Netherlands-based TNO create a fast, flexible, and faultless, say that 3 times fast, assembly process. So welcome, Paul. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here, Tom. Thanks.
Yeah, so a couple housekeeping things, Paul. So for our live stream viewers, if you'd like to ask a question, please do so using the Q&A function below. So if you look down on your little control panel there, there'll be a button that says Q&A. Click on that, ask a question. We've been having fun interacting with the audience while we go through our dialogue with Paul and I. So before we get into the TNO case study, Paul, which was featured in our 2020 Tech and Industry Report, let's first set the stage and discuss what the heck is augmented work instruction, right? Because a lot of people are going to go, I don't even know what that is necessarily, how to use it. And why is it kind of critical that our manufacturers start thinking about this in a changing manufacturing landscape?
Yeah, great question, Tom. Well, first of all, a lot of questions that we get is around what is augmented reality versus virtual reality? And we want to be able to answer that maybe first for everybody. Virtual reality is where you basically immerse yourself with these goggles in a virtual world. So if you've got a virtual reality headset on, you wouldn't be able to see anything in front of you other than what's in your virtual world. Augmented reality, on the other hand, overlays virtual images on top of the physical world. So you're able to see, the physical world in front of you with, virtual images that can be provided by a tablet, like an iPad or something like that. It can be provided by a wearable, like a Google Glass, Microsoft HoloLens, a lot of different ones that are out there, or even projection-based augmented reality, which is really, what we are focusing on. But the real advantages to your question about what is the augmented reality value proposition for manufacturing is that people don't need to look at paper-based or monitor-based work instruction, which really now become non-value added, because if somebody is looking at a monitor for information, they're no longer building a transmission or an engine or a Tesla vehicle. So you can take those work instructions and put them step-by-step on the physical workflow virtually, so then you can basically gain productivity and quality just by following the lights, basically.
So let's follow that string a little bit, Paul, and say, okay, I get it. And hopefully our audience gets it, because I live with you a lot and we talk about this all the time. But let's say our audience gets it. Now we're in this age of COVID and manufacturing has changed dramatically and new processes are having to be invented. And how does this augmented reality work instruction, how does it work in the age of a pandemic?
Yeah, it's a great question. And even before the pandemic, Tom, companies around the world were always trying to maximize their flexibility operationally, maximize their employee safety. So that part of it hasn't really changed, in this COVID area. But what has changed is now it's even more important than ever before to localize supply chains, to minimize the risk of disruption, like a lot of companies, saw during this COVID, when all of a sudden you can't get parts anymore from China or wherever it might be. So localizing supply chains to minimize supply risk is more important than ever before. And quite honestly, increasing and maximizing flexibility, because if you're responsive to changing demand, you don't need a forecast anymore. You basically are able to change on the fly. So that's also very, very important. And then on the safety side, you know, as we've all seen, you know, somebody, just one person coming into a factory that's tested positive, you know, can, through contact tracing, you know, really impact a lot of different people very quickly within a factory, and even as they go out of the factory as well. So keeping employees safe by maybe keeping even factory workers at home, making a product helps to maximize employee safety. And we're able to do that in some cases with augmented reality.
Yeah, really great. So let's shift gears and let's turn over to the case study. And let's talk about TNO. So first, let's set the stage. Who is TNO? What services do they provide? And, you know, how did you get involved? What was the challenge that brought you and Light Guide and Op Solutions in to talk about Light Guide systems?
Yeah, it's an amazing study, actually, and it is very consistent, by the way, Tom, with a lot of the results that we see with a lot of our customers that don't publicize these results publicly, like they did at TNO. But this is a technology association out of the Netherlands that really evaluates and even recommends Industry 4.0 type of technologies like Light Guide to their European client base. And so they pulled together 3 different companies that are all, you know, clients of theirs. One of them is a company called Omron, which I think a lot of us in manufacturing are very familiar with, TE Connectivity, and Bronkhorst High Tech. Those 3 companies participated in this study. And the basis of the study was they took 35 experienced employees, operators, that had been working with monitor-based work instructions. So, you know, very traditional work instructions in manufacturing today. And then they switched over that same exact process to Light Guide system work instructions or augmented reality work instructions. So now the monitor basically went away, paper-based work instructions went away, and these 35 experienced employees were now building parts with augmented reality work instructions. And the results were pretty amazing. About a 57% improvement in productivity when people are getting the work instructions right on their natural workflow. And their quality defects had been running around 80,000 parts per million defective, literally went down to 0. And we see that with a lot of our customers. When you are following the lights, you know, on your workflow, then you can literally get to truly 0 defects. And that's the power, quite honestly, of augmented reality. Augmented reality isn't necessarily a defect prevention, defect detection technology. It's truly a defect prevention. We're trying to make sure defects are never created in the first place. And that really highlights the power in that TNO study of augmented reality to accomplish that.
So let's focus on that a little bit. So you said 80,000 per million down to virtually 0.
Yep.
Talk to me about how does this work with a dynamic workforce, a workforce that is coming and going, and one week somebody's showing up and the next week they're not showing up and you have a new employee starting. How does augmented reality, I like to talk about it as, you know, 0 training, 0 degree. Somebody shows up and they are productive that day. Tell me how that stitches in with what augmented reality is and what you do.
Yeah, great. Well, just to take a little bit of a tangent approach to answer your question there, Tom, I would say it's very similar to what the GPS has done for error-proofing the driving experience. And we all remember the old hard copy maps that we had in our glove compartment. You know, quite honestly, very analogous to hard copy work instructions that are on a manufacturing floor today. And GPS, you know, basically has replaced those work instructions, our maps, with this great combination of the right information at the right place, right time. So whether you're a driver in your car with 40 years of experience driving vehicles or a 16-year-old that just got their license, you know, it can really help to make sure that no matter how many years of driving experience you've had, you're going to go from point A to point B, ideally without making a mistake due to GPS. And it's very similar analogy to augmented reality. When you've got step-by-step work instructions that you're following either through a tablet, a wearable, or even from a projector, your defects can basically go down to 0. And I remember when my daughters got their twins, got their driver's license, they wanted to go to Cedar Point. In the old days, I would have hopped in the car with them, you know, just to make sure they got there safely. And with GPS, you know, it was a bit of a risk, but we
A
said,
leap of faith on your part.
you're on your own at 16 years old. And they made it there and back, obviously calling us along the way without making one mistake. And so that's really the power of, of what GPS can do, very similar to what Like can do on a manufacturing floor.
So talk to me about, we talked a little bit about these short-term benefits that TNO got. We talk to me about some of the long-term benefits. So I'm sitting here as an audience member. I'm a small manufacturer. I'm trying to think, this seems awful Star Trek-ish, awful Star Wars-like. Is this really for me right now at this moment, or should I just be aware of it and maybe think about it, 2-3 years from now? Well, why today? Why now? Why do companies need to be looking at augmented reality?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, it truly is a disruptive technology, first of all. I mean, this is something that is still maturing over time as we speak. And we've been in the business since 2005, with light guide systems. So we're now coming up on our 16th year here, with this technology. What we are finding for a very large factory at a General Motors or a Tesla or wherever it might be, there really isn't one specific augmented reality technology that can handle all of the manual processes that exist on a manufacturing floor involving assembly or inspection or part kitting or even training. So there are definitely different types of augmented reality products that lend themselves better to the different manual processes on the shop floor. So you have to be very selective on what AR technology you choose for the different manual processes out there. So, but for it to be really sustainable, companies need to be smart about deploying those technologies so that they are choosing the right AR product for their manual processes, because we don't want any new technology to be all show and no go, where you invest a bunch of money, you put it on the floor, and then 12 months later, it's not being used. It really needs to be something that's driving an ROI and is able to be sustainable, and quite honestly, something that's acceptable and accepted by the team members on the shop floor, because they truly are the end customer. They're the ones that are going to be using the technology on a regular basis.
So that leads me to my next question, which is, as you were talking, I was thinking, so do employees, do they generally embrace this system? You have a lot of experience in this. What have you learned over time? I'm sure there's lots of stories where you're like, oh, I would have done that different had I actually, gone back and been able to got it perfect. But how do you make sure the employees are like, man, this is awesome. I love this.
Well, first of all, Tom, back to the GPS example. And again, in a way we can all relate to, when GPS came out, a lot of people said, I don't need that. I can drive just fine. I know my routes, et cetera. And now we can't live without it, right? Whether you're an experienced driver or somebody that's not so experienced. It's really the same on the shop floor is, whether we like it or not, everybody in manufacturing is trying to decrease the amount of variation, product variation on a factory floor. But in reality, it's actually increasing. And as variation on a factory floor continues to increase and increase, not even just within a product line, but even totally different products sometimes that are coming across, an assembly line or whatever it might be, the stress level on people on the shop floor is actually going up. And so if there is a tool like augmented reality that can minimize the stress level at high levels of variation on a factory floor, to allow people to build with the highest quality, productivity, and training effectiveness all the time, not just part of the time, then you're going to see some dramatic improvement. So, that's really, again, where augmented reality can plug in and make sure that those metrics are being accomplished in maximizing, the flexibility on the factory floor.
Well, so stress level is going up, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would argue an experience level is going down. Right? You're getting less qualified pool of people to pick from because they're going off and doing other things, and you don't have that trained manufacturing base that come in and know how to operate different assembly situations. So your system would, I assume, overcome those limitations where you say, look, I can bring somebody in, I can keep their stress level down, because their stress usually comes from not knowing.
Right.
and not having that experience. But if you come in and say, hey, there's nothing to know, you can just get started right away. Do you find that you lower the stress, but you're still able to pull from a pool of people that are not experienced?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the root cause of people making mistakes today without augmented reality is really the pages and pages of work instructions that people need to understand, memorize, and then follow. So if you can minimize that root cause or even eliminate it by just following lights, the quality productivity goes up dramatically. And yeah, we've seen many cases, Tom, where, and we all, again, coming from a manufacturing background, can appreciate this. It's a Saturday, somebody doesn't show up for scheduled overtime, and you got to go find somebody, to put on that job, just to keep the assembly line running. We've had a number of plant managers that have contacted us and said, the first time I had to do that with augmented reality, like light guide systems, this person with hardly any training at all built for 8 hours on the shift and didn't go over cycle one time and didn't build any defects into the product. So that is, again, where light guide can drive a lot of different ROI improvements on the manufacturing floor through the almost instantaneous training aspect of what somebody needs to do. And one other point there, yeah, we've actually had a number of companies that have had, for instance, English-speaking employees on first shift, maybe Spanish-speaking employees on second shift, and a third language on third shift. And the more you get away from, the work instructions that are in a certain language, and it's not your native language, that you see the quality goes down and even productivity goes down. But when you're just following lights, language becomes a non-issue.
And so you can follow lights, but I also assume you could have different work instructions for different workers. You could actually project in different languages if the customer so chose, right? If they said, hey, we're going to set this up so that this is projecting in Spanish. Is that
exactly
possible?
We've done that in 4 different languages at a customer before. Now, we do try to minimize any of the text that we project. If you can, it's almost like the IKEA model of their work instructions where there's no text in an IKEA set of work instructions. It's all graphics. That's really our goal, is to keep everything as graphic based as possible to minimize the amount of text. But you're exactly right. We've had also examples where somebody that's brand new on the job is going to be getting work instructions with a little different content than somebody that's been on that job for a year or more.
Yeah. So we got a question from Scott Phillips, who's a good friend of the alley as well. But before we answer Scott's question, I want to make sure I get this in and not forget. So most of our members are small, Paul, as you know. They're under 20 million in revenue. We have hundreds and hundreds of small manufacturers. What is a augmented reality system? I know there's a huge range. You can have a Cadillac, you can have a Yugo, but give me a range of, like, how do I frame the expense of this system in relation to an employee that I would have working?
Yeah, great question. So really, from a cost standpoint, our goal is that any system that we install for a customer is a 12-month or less return on investment, which is oftentimes, kind of a key hurdle rate that everybody is trying to get over to justify either a CapEx expense, or even we can do it as a SaaS model where it's a monthly subscription that somebody would pay for to be able to utilize light guide system on their shop floor. So we've got a couple different commercial options, of how somebody could deploy this. But once it's deployed, then it's able to handle almost unlimited variation. So for a small and medium enterprise, that's really something that can drive a quick ROI, because now instead of having different lines maybe on your shop floor for different model numbers that take up space, there's extra tooling, there's extra labor, there's a lot of costs associated with all of those additional lines. It may be possible with augmented reality to take all of those lines and consolidate them down to one line. And you can be building a fuel injector, for a batch run, and you could be building 7 or 8 totally different products on that same assembly line with changeover guidance between those products as well. So it really can, optimize those floor operations by putting all of that variation down in existing lines in a very safe way that's going to not jeopardize the quality and productivity and the training.
Cool stuff, actually. So Scott asked a question. I'm going to read it to you, Paul, so everybody can hear it if they're not looking at the Q&A. And I'm going to not put my cheaters on and divulge my age, but so I'm going to try and read it on the screen. So how is OPS or OPS partnering with systems integrators or other industry solution partners to reach small and medium enterprise? I became aware of Light Guide Systems from Design Systems Inc. in Farmington Hills. So he's saying, how do you tell your story other than Automation Alley, Paul?
It's a great point. And DSI is actually one of our great partners here locally. So the team at DSI is actually helping us to get Light Guide in front of companies that are looking for solutions to their operational problems. But in addition to our main office, which is in Wixom, Michigan, we've also got office over in Prague, over in Czech Republic or Czechia now, catering to the European market because we're growing very quickly over there. And we also got an office in China because we're growing very quickly, within the China market as well. But having said that, we've got a great network of channel partners around the world, such as DSI, but also a number of systems integrators that are recommending Light Guide into their end customer base, for ways to improve, innovative ways to improve the quality and productivity as well. So some of these systems integrators have got employees, 10,000 employees around the world that can help us to get Light Guide in front of their customers, but also install and support Light Guide after the sale as well. So we continue to expand our channel partner network, and we're working with some great partners to get the word out on Light Guide.
So to embellish on your GPS theme, as you were talking about that, one of the things that came to mind for me was, so yes, GPS replaced the map in the sense that it now helps me get to where I need to go. But when we all started using GPS, then something magical happened in that when you aggregate all these GPS systems, new features become available. And now I can do things like, give me the shortest route, give me the fastest route based on traffic. It creates new information and new value to me. And, when I leave Automation Alley to go home, I know my way home, but I always put it in for GPS because it tells me if there's an accident somewhere and how to route me. So new features because of the data that is now being collected. So take that into the Light Guide system. So what are you doing and what are your customers doing with all the data you're now able to get? And, well, I suppose that's an assumptive. I assume you're collecting data, and I'll let you answer that. And then tell me, how do you use that data?
Yeah, so right now, we are collecting data around cycle times for every step of the process. So you don't need to go out and do a periodic stopwatch time study anymore. You're getting this essential real-time time study with every single cycle, even every single step that's being run. So we're recording data around the team member that did the work, the number of parts they produced, cycle time data. We can actually get end of step snapshots, webcam pictures from a traceability standpoint to be able to show what did that part look like at the end of every step. So if there's a warranty claim, you can see based on that serial number, how did that part look during the assembly process? So there's a lot of analytics there. But to your specific question, Tom, and again, the GPS one's a great one, as we all think about the evolution of GPS, it started out as just a step-by-step work instruction. But now it basically is adding in artificial intelligence and machine learning into that GPS model. So it's telling you, that you've got a traffic accident 10 miles ahead and it can automatically reroute you. So it's giving you information that you would not even know as the most experienced driver. And we're doing a lot of the same thing now with Light Guide, is all that analytics and data that we're capturing can be uploaded into Siemens, MindSphere type of a program, or AWS, or any of the analytics tools that are out there. So the raw data gets uploaded into existing trend models, et cetera, and then you can bolt on an artificial intelligence or machine learning package to that data and be able to actually possibly recommend improvements to your process automatically based on the data that's coming into the model. So it is really elevating, augmented reality and the analytics that are possible with it to provide even process and optimization recommendations onto the shop floor as well.
So we got a question from Paul Chapman. Hi, Paul. How you doing? Hopefully you can hear me well. Paul Chapman asked, does Light Guide interface with the in-house CAD system to generate images?
Yeah, it's a great question, Paul. And by the way, good name. So that what basically is something
Paul's a good friend of the alley too.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so we were able to do that within certain CAD packages. So, please let us know what CAD packages that you'd like us to interface with. And, it really depends a little bit on that CAD package and the nature of the 3D model. So the short answer is it's quite possible to do that, but we oftentimes need to look at that in more detail to really understand the nature of that CAD package. And Paul just came back with a Siemens Siemens NX. NX specifically, we have not interfaced in with today, but we could, if we get into those details with you a little bit more. Our Chief Technology Officer, Will Somerville, and his team would work with you on that and understand, what that interface model might need to look like into Siemens NX.
So we're running out of time, Paul, but I want to ask you a question concerning home-based manufacturing. So if I think about this technology, and it's a table-based system that allows augmented reality to make perfect parts every time, in an age of COVID, it's not crazy to think that I could send somebody home with that system with a bucket of parts and they could be working from home. Talk to me a little bit about that. I know that we have a project going internally that you're helping us head up called Home-Based Manufacturing in conjunction with the World Economic Forum and our roundtables that focus on that. Talk to me about how this augmented reality works related to home-based manufacturing and what the
and actually, Tom, the $12 million grant that Automation Alley has may play a big role in advancing, home-based manufacturing together with Lightguide in local SMEs as well. So, and I've also got another question here from Scott about, is it just an assembly operation? So I'll answer all of that here as well. So Lightguide in a factory can help guide people through assembly operations, part kitting, inspection, training. To us, it really doesn't matter, what that manual process is. And it's the same with home-based manufacturing as well. As the COVID is basically ramped up here, for a lot of us salaried workers, we're able to work from home almost with the same level of productivity as we can in a factory. But for somebody that's a machine operator, that option has not been available to them. So many people, working on a machine or an assembly line have either been furloughed or laid off because there hasn't been work for them. Home-based manufacturing, for some, not all operations in a factory, actually now may allow machine operators and workers to work from home, building some of the same products maybe that they were building in a factory. And it's a win-win because now it minimizes the number of people in the factory to reduce the exposure risk. And it also allows people that may have otherwise been laid off to be working from home and getting gainful employment, no different than a lot of our salaried employees have been able to do during this COVID crisis.
It is a world that's happening right in front of us. So we're pretty much out of time, Paul. I really want to thank you for being with us. I love the topic. It's always fascinating to me. The stuff you're working on is just, everybody needs to pay attention to it because it's not technology that's over the hill. It's technology that's right here, right now, that needs to be investigated and adopted because we have an opportunity in America to really see a push to reshoring, not out of some patriotism, but because it makes economic sense finally. And your systems actually allow that to happen. And I see good things for Michigan and America for the next 10, 15 years. And augmented reality is going to play a huge role in that.
Yeah, we actually think of Lightguide as a practical augmented reality too, Tom. I mean, we've been running 24/7 in factories for 4 or 5 years in some cases. So it really is proven, on the shop floor and provides a great flexible option compared to automation in a lot of cases as well. So we've actually eliminated some robots in some cases with Lightguide system, which is good to see.
Yeah, right. It works both ways, right? So we'll leave it there. Thank you, Paul. So for our viewers today, I got to do one commercial, and that is join us next week, same bat time, same bat channel as we heard when we were kids. I'm going to be joined by Dr. Peter Warrow, Director of Applied Research and Development at St. Clair College, for a discussion on 3D printing's impact on the supply chain. And that is also going to dovetail perfectly into our $12 million grant to work on how we do 3D printing and augmented reality in small manufacturers. And just a reminder, if you've not downloaded the 2020 Tech and Industry Report, You can do so by visiting automationla.com/tech report, or if you're a member, download it for free by logging into the member portal on our website and clicking the resource tab. So thanks everybody. Thanks, Paul.